And Colleen too, she gets started there too. Okay, that's fine, that's fine. I just don't want to waste any time and make it sit longer than they need to.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. Wait, where's Rick? Oh, there he, I see. Go ahead, Mr. Teeter, when you're ready, and Mr. Gregory, your next witness.
I think our last witness in the morning would be Detective Hine, Shannon
Okay.
Hine.
I'm assuming she's out there.
She's coming down the hall.
Everything they needed at break. Make sure you tell Dave if you don't, and we'll take care of it. Okay?
Yes.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give before this court and jury to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Could you tell everybody your name, and could you spell your first and last name for me?
It's Shannon Hine, spelled H-E-I-N-E. First name is S-H-A-N-N-O-N.
And what's your occupation?
Policeman,
And what's your current rank?
sergeant.
Could you tell us how long you've been a Cincinnati police officer?
Started with the department in 1996 and became a police officer in 1998.
And maybe if you could just take us through some of your assignments when you started out up till today.
Okay. In 96, I started as a police cadet. From there, I went to police officer. Let's see. As a police cadet, I was assigned to the police academy, city hall, the city manager's office. I'm sorry. It was the safety director's office then. Then planning section where we wrote policy and procedure. And then District 4. From there, I went into the police academy. After I graduated the police academy, I went to District 3. I was there for 14 years. 10 of those years, I was a district investigator. From there, I went to internal investigations for 3 years. And then homicide, 4 months. And then central business section for less than a year. And then now I'm in special services section with the pivot unit.
Okay. Did you say the pivot unit?
Yes.
What's the pivot unit?
Pivot's part of the city's strategy to reduce violent crime. So it stands for Place-Based Investigation of Violent Offender Territories. So what we do is we use data to drive us, basically. So we use the data to identify the most violent locations in the city, systematically violent, like over years. And then we work with the community, city departments, and other agencies to identify and change the infrastructure which is supporting, directing, or attracting the crime.
And back on July 19th of 2015, where were you assigned?
The homicide unit?
Was that in the 4-month period that you were in homicide?
Yes.
Okay. And what are the basic duties of an officer in the homicide unit?
If you're assigned there as an investigator, you'll handle homicides, suicides, baby deaths, questionable deaths, and then officer-involved shootings.
And as far as officer-involved shootings, is that when a police officer would discharge their weapon or somehow be involved in shooting somebody while on duty?
Yes, and I should correct myself. The officer-involved shootings, or it could be officer-involved encounter where the life of another has been taken,
Okay.
and it could have occurred without the use of a firearm.
And back on July 19th of 2015, did you have a partner?
I did.
Who was that?
Detective Terry McGuffey.
And in this particular case, did you get called to a situation that occurred on Rice Street between Phil and Valencia?
I did.
And could you describe to the jury, Sergeant Hine, why Cincinnati would get called if it's a UC officer-involved shooting?
Well, not only did the incident occur inside the city of Cincinnati limits, the city of Cincinnati is equipped and well-versed in the handling of those type of investigations.
And is there a policy of how you handle officer-involved shootings, Sergeant Hine?
Yes.
And could you describe the policy and how that affected what you did on July 19th of 2015?
Do you want to know how it's different from a civilian versus a
Sure.
sworn? Okay. So as a homicide investigator, when it's a civilian that takes the life of another person, just a criminal investigation is conducted. But when a sworn law enforcement officer takes the life of another, there's 3 facets to the investigative process. So let me say this. The community, you, have entrusted the police department with giving us the authority to carry and use a firearm. And with that authority comes the highest level of responsibility. 3 facets. The first facet, criminal investigation. Was a crime committed? And that criminal investigation will be handled by our criminal investigation section, the homicide unit. They'll look at, was the crime committed? They do not question officer tactics. It is not their function to, they don't question the functions of the officer's tactics, nor do they question whether or not a department policy or procedure was violated. They're looking for criminal behavior. The crime would be determined around what actually occurred with the events surrounding the shooting and what were the behaviors of the people involved. The second facet, administrative investigation. It's entirely possible to have a lawful application of force, but the officer's still in violation of a department policy, procedure, training concept or method or practice, and then that officer would be subject to discipline, all the way up to dismissal. He could also face more training. The third facet, which is what we really do to ensure the community that we take our responsibility seriously. It's a firearm discharge board. They do a comprehensive review of all the investigative parts, the criminal investigation, the administrative investigation. They're looking to determine, is our department policy and procedure appropriate? Does it need to be amended? Do we need a new one? Was the officer's training adequate? Was it inadequate? Do we need to change training? Do we need to look at resources, how we respond to different incidents? They are the quality control mechanism that's in place for all of our critical discharges of firearms.
Would it be fair to say, Sergeant Hine, though, that ultimately, as far as criminal responsibility, it's up to a grand jury and a jury to decide that?
Yes, for the criminal part of the investigation, homicide would handle that part, and then they would turn it over to the prosecutor's office, and that's where the legality of the actions will be determined.
Now, as far as July 19th, 2015, did you go to that scene?
I did.
Could you briefly describe what you saw or found at the scene?
At the scene, on the approach up Thill, there were, it was blocked, but there were several police cars. And then as we're going up Rice Street, I saw what appeared to be a bottle of gin. It said Burton Gin on the bottle, but the substance was of yellow in color. Further up was a flashlight. And then as I made my way all the way up the hill, is where I located the green Honda with the deceased subject on the ground.
Was that Sam DeBose dead on the ground then, Sergeant Hine?
It was Mr. DeBose.
Okay. Now, were there criminalists then assigned to process the crime scene?
Yes, sir. Fortunately, with the homicide unit, I don't get to do any of my crime scenes.
Okay. And it was Pham and a couple other criminalists, Horney,
Yes.
and maybe Alexander?
There's Officer Horning, there's Officer Alexander, there's Officer Pham, and there's Officer Odom.
Okay. Now, was there a canvass done of that scene?
There was.
Could you describe to the jury what a canvass is?
Canvass is basically a door-to-door, knocking on the doors of the residents and or businesses in the area to identify if there were any witnesses to the incident. That was conducted by the personal crimes unit in our under criminal investigation section.
And could you let the jury know, Sergeant Hine, what the results of the canvass were?
There were multiple people that had heard the crash and had heard gunshots, but there was only one person that actually said that she saw the incident.
And did that turn out to be Alicia Napier?
It was.
How did you find Miss Napier?
Through the canvass, we learned that the daughter-in-law or girlfriend of the resident's son had been in her vehicle or going to her vehicle at the time. And that was learned through the canvass, and then she was contacted later so we can conduct an interview with her.
Okay. And it looks like in the video, Sergeant Hine, that there was maybe another vehicle going up and down the street at about the same time. There's also a pedestrian walking down the street at the same time. Did you ever try to locate or find any of those type of people?
Yes, the attempt was made by several people on the team to identify the person that was walking up the street. That person was never located. The vehicle, at the time I thought it was a Toyota Camry that passed Officer Tenzing as he fell to the ground, but I later learned it was an Oldsmobile Electra. So I was looking for them.
So no, other than Alicia Napier, no other eyewitnesses were found other than people that heard it but did not see anything?
Correct.
Did you try to locate any video of the scene as it was unfolded that day?
Yes.
And tell the jury what you did there.
While we were on scene, we noticed that there was one of the officers noticed there was a house that had cameras. So we spoke with the tenants of the house, and they informed us that only the owner of the property had access to the room in which the camera equipment was stored. So we made arrangements to obtain the video from the owner.
Okay.
And
Tell
we
us
did.
What happened.
We met with the owner. We were able to download the video and we reviewed that. But since the house is 2 to 3 houses south of Valencia Street, so where the house sits, the incident occurred down the hill. So where the house and the camera was sit in place, you couldn't capture the event, or when the car came up the hill and stopped, because the house and the camera sat too far back and too far up.
So that video captured none of this incident?
Yeah, we got nothing of
Okay.
value.
Other than that, were there any other videos found at the scene?
No, sir. Only the body-worn cameras.
Gotcha. And then do you normally try to talk to the involved officers that day or that evening, Sergeant Hine?
Yeah, it's the policy of the Cincinnati Police Department that we interview the officers that are involved in a situation, whether or not they were actually involved in the discharging of the firearm, or if they were witnesses to the event, or if they responded later.
Okay. So you say you got the 3 body-worn, did you get 3 body-worn cameras then?
Yes.
Tenzing, Linden Schmidt, and Kidd?
Yes.
And then as far as interviewing Tenzing, Linden, Schmidt, and Kidd, you said if we're Cincinnati, you normally talk to them right around that time?
Yes, we would go to the scene like we did, and we would, the canvass would be conducted, the crime scene would be conducted, information would be collected, and then from there, we would respond back to the criminal investigation section where follow-up interviews would then be conducted with all the participants involved.
And as this situation unfolded, Sergeant Hine, did you become aware that UC Police had a different policy?
Yes. So UC's policy, and I thought it was a union policy, so I apologize, but it's actually their department firearms policy, standard operating procedure, that they have to give a formal statement within 48 hours of the incident.
So what you normally would have talked to the involved officers that day, there was something in effect that prohibited you from talking to him for a couple days?
Yes.
So when you interviewed Linden, Schmidt, Kidd, and Tenzing, would that have been on or about July 21st, 2015, 2 days later?
It was.
And as far as if you could let the jury know, Sergeant Hine, in your own words, what the general policy is of Cincinnati as far as letting witnesses see video, or in this case their body-worn cameras, prior to giving their statements to you?
With the Cincinnati Police Department, in an effort to obtain a raw, uninfluenced, uncompelled statement from the officer, a true recollection of his memory from the events that he was encountering, perceiving, experiencing, feeling at the time he decided that level of force was needed, we do not show in the video. We do not want a compelled statement.
And what is the danger if you view the video first?
Because it's now the officer may not remember. It's a rapidly unfolding event. So what they remember, we want them to tell us what they remember. What can they recollect in that statement? We don't want them to look at a video and now feel like they need to narrate what that video is telling us or what we see in the video. Because what you and I see in the video may not be what that officer was seeing at the time he used that level of force.
Now, did you allow or permit Ray Tenzing, Linden Schmidt, or Kidd to watch their body-worn camera videos prior to their interviews?
I did not.
Do you know if anybody allowed, permitted, or if any of those three watched their videos prior to the statements?
I learned later that yes, they did.
All three?
I believe 2 of the 3.
Okay. Do you know if Ray Tenzing watched his body-worn camera prior to your interview of him?
Yes.
Now, you talked about to the jury, Sergeant Hine, about Alicia Napier, and she got interviewed the evening of the 19th, maybe shortly after midnight, fair to say?
Yes.
And did she give a taped statement to you?
She did.
And was she shown a body-worn camera video or allowed to view any kind of video prior to giving her taped statement?
No, sir.
Did you tell her what to say or direct her what to say, or did Officer McGuffey tell her what to say in any way?
No.
You try to let the witness say in their own words what happened to the best of their knowledge?
Yes, I didn't even tell her what the situation was, so she had no idea it was even the situation. I didn't give her any detail around it.
Okay. You let her provide the details?
Right.
And why is that important?
Same thing. I don't want to influence her statement. I want her to give me the recollection of what she thought she was seeing or encountering at the time.
And then on July 21st of 2015, you interviewed Ray Tenzing.
July 21st?
Do you see him here today in court?
I do.
Where is he?
He's seated next to Mr. Matthews at the defense table.
With the record show identification of the defendant, Your Honor.
I will stipulate, yes.
And who was present at that interview, Sergeant?
It was myself, Detective McGuffey, Officer Tenzing, and then he was a union attorney. His first name's Nero, and I apologize, I don't know his last name.
So it was you 2 officers, Ray Tenzing, and then Ray Tenzing's union attorney?
Yes.
Not Mr. Matthews?
Not Mr. Matthews.
It was a recording done of his interview?
Yes.
Could you describe how that was done?
We use a video recording system that would capture the what's going on in the interview room, And then I also use a separate voice recorder, a digital voice recorder that would capture the audio part of the interview.
At some point towards the end of the interview, was there a little glitch?
Yes, I apologize.
Could you tell us about that?
So there's two ways to activate it. One's inside the room and one's outside the interview room. So at one point during the interview room, we took a break, and then when we came back in, Detective McGuffey had activated the recording device on the outside of the room, but when I got in and sat at the table, I activated it I thought I was activating it on the inside of the room, which was really deactivating it.
Okay. And as a result, is there a small portion that's not videoed, but it's audio?
Yes.
So everything that's said is captured, it's just some of it, the audio isn't present, the video isn't present?
Yes.
Judge, I'm just going to read a statement that Mr. Matthews, I think, is in agreement with. That states Exhibit 9A is the video recording of the defendant's interview with Cincinnati Police on July 21st, 2015. Several breaks were taken during the interview, and during some of those breaks, the defendant was present in the interview room with his attorney. By the agreement of the parties, those sections of the interview have been redacted from the interview. There was also a few-minute segment of the interview where the officers are questioning the defendant about damage to his uniform, where the video did not record what was taking place, but the audio was functioning. Both sides agreed that the complete audio part of the interview was recorded on this disc, and the only thing missing was the few minutes of the video. And Judge, 9A is the actual disc, so I would like to admit and play that.
Mr. Matthews?
No objection.
Okay, thank you.
Judge, and what we've also done is, and I think it's called Exhibit 9B, and we mark it with an exhibit sticker, but it's the transcript of the interview. And what I would ask is that we be able to pass this out to the jury and then have them follow along as they listen and see this, but it would not be an exhibit, and after the conclusion of the statement, this would be returned to your bailiff.
Okay. Mr. Matthews?
No objection.
Okay, you've seen it, right? I know
Yes.
we had some issues with the attorney-client. Okay.
You made some extras. We made one for the court and also the court reporter, and then for the defense counsel. And then if you want to follow along.
Ray Tenzing, nice to meet you. Terry McGuffey, nice to meet you.
Well, you know why you're here.
Yes.
I'm glad that we're here to talk. Sorry about the circumstances around it, but it's just a formality. Okay. Before we start, I'm going to read this to you. The current time right now is 1:58. Today's date is July the 21st. This is not a custodial interrogation, and you are not under arrest. As a result, we are not legally obligated to read you your Miranda rights. You are also present with counsel. However, you did fire a shot that took someone's life, and as a result, could possibly face criminal charges. Are you willing to answer questions related to the shooting incident that took place on Sunday, July 19, 2015?
Yes, I am.
Before we start, will you go ahead and just tell me a little bit about yourself? I know your name's Ray Tenzing.
Yes, ma'am.
How old are you?
I'm 25 years old. I'm born and raised in Corrigan Township. I went to Corrigan High School as a Sheriff's Explorer for Hamilton County for 5 years. I attained the rank of captain. Went to Ohio State my freshman year to study criminology. Transferred to UC my sophomore year, where I graduated in 2012 with a Bachelor of Criminal Justice degree, Bachelor of Science degree. During college, I went to UC Claremont's Police Academy, where I became certified. Shortly after that, I was hired as a part-time police officer for the Village of Green Hills. And after graduating college, I was promoted to full-time at Green Hills. In April of 2014, I was then hired full-time as a University of Cincinnati police officer.
How long did you work for Green Hills?
Approximately, let's see, April of 11 to December of 14, so just shy of 4 years.
Okay. And what's your current rank with UCPD?
Patrol officer.
Okay. What's your shift?
Second shift, 3 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Do you ride with a partner or typically ride solo?
For pretty much the first half of our shift, we're solo. We're at primary from 3:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. At 9:30 p.m., third shift comes in and they take over as primary. And at that point, depending what beat we are that day, we can be paired up with another second shift officer until 1 a.m.
Okay. The incident that took place on Rice Street at Valencia, will you tell me what occurred that day?
Yes, I was sitting at the intersection of East Hollister and Vine Street. I had just come down Auburn and taken a right on East Hollister, and I was planning on traveling westbound over Vine Street to go up West Hollister back to McMillan. As I was sitting at the intersection of East Hollister and Vine Street, I looked up to the north and I saw a green Honda Accord with no front license plate coming from that intersection. And he was traveling southbound in the number 1 lane on Vine Street. And he passed the intersection that I was sitting at. I noticed that he did not have a front plate on the vehicle. As the vehicle passed, I ran the rear license plate, which was an Ohio plate. I ran that in my MDC. It came back to a female, and she was under a driving suspension. That's when I pulled out southbound on Vine Street after the vehicle to initiate a traffic stop.
At what point, no, go ahead, just finish the entire incident.
The vehicle continued down southbound on Vine Street. When we were approaching Phil, that's when I flipped on my lights, my takedown lights, my red and blues, to initiate a traffic stop, and I simultaneously called out over my radio that I was conducting a traffic stop on Phil Street just off of Vine. After I noticed that he turned on his blinker to turn eastbound onto Phil Street. I then followed him onto Phil Street with my emergency lights activated. He did not stop right away, and with it being daytime, I flicked on my siren a couple of times just to make sure that he knew I was behind him, attempting to pull him over. He still continued all the way down Phil Street with my siren. I kept flicking it on. He wasn't fleeing from me, he just wasn't stopping. He just kept driving. He turned right south onto Rice Street, where he then pulled over on the side of the road, and I then pulled up behind him. When this was happening, I advised my dispatch that he was slow to stop, that he wasn't fleeing from me, but he was just slow to stop. And I exited my vehicle. I walk up to Mr. DeBose. I made contact with him. I asked him what his name was, and I do not believe he answered me. I then introduced myself. I said I'm Officer Tensing with UC Police, and I asked him for his driver's license. I asked him for his driver's license several times. He did not produce one. He asked the reason as to why I stopped him. And I explained that to him, that his front license plate was not on the vehicle. He then took the key out of the ignition and reached over to the glove box with the key and unlocked the glove box with his key. He then pulled out the front license plate and showed me that he did in fact have a front license plate, but it was in his glove box. I said, you don't need to pull it out, you don't need to reach for that, it's okay. And I again asked him for his driver's license. Again, he just made movements with his hands like he was digging in his pockets. He was just kind of looking around. He made eye contact with me a couple times, but then he'd look away, and I just kept asking him for his driver's license. And he said he had one, but it wasn't on him. And then I asked him, just be honest with me, are you under driving suspension? He said no. He said something to the effect of, you can run my social security number, I can give you my social. At that point, I could not ID him. I did not know who he was. He was failing to display his driver's license to me. I advised them that I was going to detain him, and I proceeded to open the car door. As I opened the car door, I advised him to remove his seatbelt. He immediately, with his left hand, pulled the car door shut and did not take off his seatbelt. And immediately after that, he reached up and turned the key, which was in the ignition at this point. He turned the key back on. At this point, I was so close to Mr. DeBost, so close to his vehicle, I thought I had a good chance of reaching in and turning the key off before he could go anywhere. I really thought I could do that before he took off. So as I reached in to knock the key out and turn the key off, he put it in drive. It was a center console shifter. He put the vehicle in drive, and he just mashed the accelerator as he pulled out. And my hand and my left arm, it somehow got caught or tangled up in the steering wheel as he's accelerating. At this point, I lost my balance, and I fell against his car on the left side of my body. Was hanging on to the side of his car, and I was kind of facing backwards. My body was facing his trunk. As he continued to accelerate, my arm was still stuck at this point. I could not free it. At that point, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm getting dragged by this guy's car. I don't want to die today. I'm in fear of my life. At some point, my hand, it's still stuck as I'm drawing my weapon out, thinking, this guy's actively trying to kill me right now. I don't want to die today on the street. I don't want to get run over by his vehicle. So I pulled my gun out, and as I'm falling, I'm kind of below the plane of his window. So the only shot I could see that I could take to stop the threat was a headshot. That's the only part of his body I could really see at that point and had a clear visual of. And I was telling him, I told him, I believe twice, to stop the vehicle, stop, stop. I just wanted him to stop the car. That was my goal. He still just continued to accelerate, and that's when I discharged one round, and I hit him in the head with that round. Again, I did that because I was in fear of my life. I was holding on for dear life. I did not want to get stuck underneath this car and run over by the tires. It's difficult to explain.
What happened after you discharged the round?
Immediately after I discharged, when I discharged the round, my hand at that point, I believe, was free from the vehicle, but the vehicle was still in motion at that point. He was still accelerating. He had his foot mashed the accelerator. I believe I was trying to grab his shirt. I was trying to hold on just for dear life because the vehicle, like I said, at that point was in motion, and he was rapidly accelerating. And the way he pulled over, there was a vehicle that was parked on the street in front of his vehicle. So in order for him to pull out to go, he had to turn left a little bit to get back on the street. As he turned left, that's when I was getting dragged, and my hand became free. I was either trying to grab his shirt or have my hand over the windowsill, just trying to hold on for dear life because I did not want to get stuck underneath his tires and ran over. And I knew when I initiated the traffic stop also that there was a guardrail with posts that faced the street. It was on the east side of Rice Street. And I knew if he would have kept driving that way, he could have easily scraped me off the side of his car, one of those posts, and I'd be dead. So I was just hanging on for dear life when I fired the shot, and I hit him in the head. Immediately after that, I somehow became unlodged from the car. My arm came over the door, out of the window, and I fell off the car as he continued to rapidly accelerate down the street. I fell on my back, and I slid on my back on the pavement for I don't know how long. At that same point, that's when Officer Kidd and Officer Lyndon Schmidt were pulling around the corner, and I believe they witnessed it, and they were running up to me as it happened, and I stood back up again. And at that point, we heard a loud crash. And I believe that he crashed a short distance away, so we all ran towards the crash scene on foot. I believe the crash scene was blocked from our view by a bush that was sticking out a little bit, so as we rounded the corner, we could see that he had ran into a wall and had wedged his vehicle between a wall and a telephone pole. At that point, I went up, I advised Officer Kidd. We all three of us had the car at gunpoint still, because we didn't know what he was going to do at that point, or if I even shot him at that point. I advised Officer Kidd to cover me, and I went around the vehicle, which was still screaming at this point. He still had his foot on the accelerator, and the engine was redlining, it was revving. So I went around the vehicle and I shut the key off. Then I came back around, and that's when they called for their officers. Officer needs assistance went out, and everyone else showed up, and we secured the scene.
I'm going to take you back. I'm going to go back to the beginning. You said he came, you lit him up on Vine Street?
Yes, ma'am.
So it took him from Vine Street as he went all the way up Phil and around up to Rice to come to a complete stop.
When he stopped on Vine Street to turn eastbound on Phil, and he had his blinker on, that's when I turned my lights on. And I believe over the radio I advised that I'll be on Phil Street just off of Vine.
Okay.
And I was hoping, my intentions were to have him just pull over right there on Phil, just off of Vine, so we get out of traffic.
Okay. Was there anything else about that car that drew your attention to it besides the no front license plate?
After I ran the tag, it came back to a female, and she was under suspension. I did not see who was driving the vehicle. All I saw that there was one person driving the vehicle, and they were wearing like a red and white designed shirt with a hat on.
Okay, so you didn't know if it was male or female?
I did not know if it was a male or a female.
Okay. All right. You approached the car. There's a car parked in front of his car when he stopped.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell if that vehicle was occupied?
I believe it was parked. It was a silver sedan.
Silver sedan. Okay. You approach the car. He refuses to give his driver's license or ID.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you recall removing a bottle from the vehicle?
I do, yes.
Tell me about that.
During the process of talking with him, I looked down on the floorboard, and there was a green bottle, which, through my experience, it looked like a bottle of alcohol. He then handed me that bottle, and I looked at it for a second. I remember it saying gin on it. So at that point, I took the bottle and I put it on top of the vehicle because I was just focused on him. I wanted to make sure I was seeing his hands and I was dealing with him. I could deal with the bottle later.
Okay.
Yes.
At any time before he attempted to leave for the car and drive, did you have your hand on your weapon at any time during?
No, ma'am. I believe not.
Okay, so not even when he went into the glove compartment?
I think my hand kind of dropped that way, just in the area of my gun, but I do not recall doing anything with my weapon, touching my weapon, or anything like that.
Okay.
Because I could see when he opened the glove box, it was just a bunch of papers, and he was just reaching for his license plate.
You're what height?
I'm 6'3".
6'3". So where are you in alignment with the driver's side door and the window?
The way I usually do traffic stops and the way I did it that day was the same way. Since I'm so tall and it was a sedan, I have a bladed stance, so I stand with my body kind of facing the vehicle, and I have weight on my front left foot, and I'm leaning down and leaning into the vehicle, trying to keep most of my body behind the A-pillar of the front door.
When you were at the car door and you're in that stance, at any point in that interaction, did your duty belt come attached or connected to the front door? Did your duty belt get stuck?
Did it get stuck on the vehicle? No.
Okay, so let me see if that occurred.
It may have touched the vehicle if I leaned in or whatnot, but it never got stuck on the actual vehicle.
Okay. Your intention when you drew your weapon was to do what?
It was to stop the threat. I believed at that point, when I was getting dragged by his vehicle, that he was actively trying to kill me.
Okay, so in your mind at that time, if you didn't react, you could be killed.
I would have either been stuck underneath his vehicle and run over and killed, or he would have gone along that guardrail and scraped me off the side of his vehicle and I would have been killed.
Okay.
Yes.
Did your feet ever leave the ground while you're connected to the car?
As I was being dragged,
Yes.
they may have. I'm sure my legs were kicking and flailing, but I don't remember exactly. All I remember is just being dragged. I could feel myself, after I lost my balance, I could just feel my body going with his vehicle and picking up momentum and being dragged by his car.
Okay, I want to follow up with that just a bit. When you're talking about being dragged, so you're saying you actually lost your footing underneath of you?
Yes, sir.
You were not running along with the car trying to
No,
stay
sir. I was
up.
stationary, and after he put it in drive and mashed the accelerator, the momentum of his vehicle going forward made me lose my balance. That's when I got my arm caught somewhere in his steering wheel. I got my left arm lodged in there.
Okay, so you lost your balance because the car took off.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and can you tell me where was it one hand or both arms inside the vehicle?
I believe initially I just reached in with my left hand to try to reach around the steering wheel, through the steering wheel, to knock the key out of the ignition, or at least turn the key off.
So the intention of you reaching in was to turn the car off?
Yes, sir.
Somehow?
I thought I had a good chance before we put it in drive to knock the key out and stop the car right there and regain control of him.
All right. You're a big guy, you got long arms, I'm sure.
Yeah.
How far in would you say your arm got, your left arm?
From the actual window.
From where you would have been outside of the car, yes, from the
How
outside
far
of the
my
car.
arm went inside? I would imagine 2.5 to 3 feet. I
Can you
reached
show me
pretty
on
far.
your arm how far you remember it being?
If this end of the table was the windowsill, I leaned in and I reached probably this far.
Okay, so you're talking past your elbow.
To where your shirt line is?
Somewhere around there, yes.
All right.
You said around or through. Do you recall if you went through the steering wheel or up and around?
I think if I recall, the biggest gap through the steering wheel and the most direct route to his keys was through the top part of the steering wheel. So I believe I stuck my arm through there to try to turn the key off.
Do you recall if the seatbelt was around your arm also?
His seatbelt, the driver's seatbelt, no.
Okay.
Not at that point. That's the point where my arm was stuck inside around his steering wheel somewhere and was lodged in there. As we were driving, and after I shot him, my arm became free, and I believe I was grabbing for a shirt or grabbing for a seatbelt just to try to hold on, to not get sucked underneath the vehicle.
Okay. When you were being traveled, and then once you fell off and got up, did you see how far you had traveled?
From the initial point of being dragged, this is just a guess, but I would say 15 to maybe 20 feet.
Okay.
I'm just guessing at that point. All I know is I was being dragged by this vehicle.
About what speed?
When I fell off,
No, when he was dragging you. Could you tell how fast he was going? And then-
obviously he went from a dead stop. He mashed the accelerator to the floor, so by the time I fell off, I was probably traveling at, I would guess, 15 miles an hour, somewhere around there.
Did his speed pick up after you fell off the vehicle?
Yes, ma'am. After I fell, I could hear his engine revving and the RPM still climbing. And then even after he crashed, like I said before, his RPMs and his engine was screaming after he crashed.
When you drew your weapon and just made that decision to stop the threat, could you feel the backstop of your pistol against him? Did you know that I know you said the head was your only shot area. Could you feel your pistol against his head?
Could I feel the muzzle against his head? No.
No. Okay. You just knew that you were putting it in that direction.
Yes, ma'am. I reached up just towards him. I don't recall making contact with his head or any contact shots or anything. I just remember reaching up as far as I could and just discharging one round towards his head.
Okay. Was there anything that he did that made you think that you hit him?
Before I fell off, yes, he immediately after I discharged the round, his head just flung to the right sideways. And then after I fell off, I was on the ground and we got up, and I heard his engine revving and still going and traveling. I thought at that point I either wounded him or I missed him completely as he was still traveling, and then we heard the crash.
questions right now?
Just a minute.
Have you had to draw your weapon before?
In the line of duty, yes, I've drawn my weapon.
In Green Hills? Or
Yes.
UC?
Both.
Okay. Have you ever had to use it prior to this incident?
Yes.
Okay.
But not a person, just at a dog that was charging me in Green Hills.
Okay. How's that dog?
I missed.
At what point in this stop did you become, and we've all been on the street, I did 14 years on the street, she did quite a while on the street. At what point did you become, did your cop sense kick in and realize this was going to be an issue on this stop, that he was not cooperating with you and you did not know where this is going?
Just after several times of asking for his license, he just kept digging around. He wouldn't directly answer my questions. He would just kind of beat around the bush. He'd say, well, yes, I have a license, but no, I don't have it on me. Oh, I live down the street here. Oh, he'd make eye contact with me for a second, and then he'd look away, and then he'd look down and just keep going through his pockets. And the motion he was making was like, okay, he's going for his license, but then and then he asked again, I believe, what's the reason you stopped me? And I said, again, your front tag on your vehicle. Just the way he was acting, it made the hairs on the back of my neck just stand up, and I was like, something's not right here. Something doesn't feel right.
When he went into the glove box, you said he had unlocked that with the key. So
yes.
He turned his car off.
He turned the car off.
Did he do that prior to going to the glove box, or when you pulled him over, did he turn the car off?
I believe when I walked up, the car was still idling, and he had put it in park.
Okay, so he went and turned the car off, in your opinion, to get the key out of the glove box to show you the front plate?
Yes.
All right. At no point up until that time, and I know she covered this, but I want to go over it again with you. At no point did your hand go to your weapon at that point when he was going to the glove box?
It went towards my weapon. It just kind of dropped near my hip. I did not touch my weapon. I did not holster my weapon. I did not manipulate the holster at all. It just went in the area of my weapon.
What did he do with the keys from the time he unlocked the glove box until he put them back in the ignition and started back up?
When he took the key back out of the glove box, I believed he moved it to his left hand as I was still asking him for his driver's license. He then put it back in his right hand and just stuck it into the ignition without turning the key at all.
Okay, so he just put it back in but did not turn it on?
Correct.
Okay, what point did he turn it on?
When I advised him that he was being detained and that I asked him to take off his seatbelt, then that's when he reached up with his right hand and he turned the ignition on and started the vehicle.
Okay. At what point did he go to put it in gear? I know you said the shifter was in between the seats.
Immediately. The second he turned the vehicle on, his hand dropped down and he slammed it in the drive.
Okay. All right. As soon as he slammed it in the drive, think back to that point, what was your reaction to that?
At that point, my hand was inside the vehicle.
So was your hand inside the vehicle prior to him putting it in the drive? You know, I guess what I'm asking, what I'm trying to get at, he makes the motion, puts the key back into the ignition and turns the ignition. At what point did you make that decision to try to reach in and grab it?
Immediately at that point.
At that point when you turned it on?
Right at the point when he reached up and turned the vehicle on, that's when I immediately reached in with my left hand, thinking that I had a really good chance of knocking the key out of the ignition, stopping the car right there. But he immediately, after he turned it on, he slammed it in drive.
So that was
simultaneously.
That was your thought process, that you could either get the key out of the ignition or keep him from turning it on.
Yes, since I was so close to his vehicle, I was already leaning, over his window. I thought real quick I could just grab the key and take it out.
Okay, was your head ever inside the vehicle?
When I leaned my left arm in, my head may have crossed the plane of the window briefly.
Was he ever aggressive towards you?
The only point he became aggressive was when I reached for his car door handle. and advised him that he was being detained and to take off his seatbelt. That's when he reached with his left hand and yanked the car door back shut.
Okay, but that was not aggression towards you. That was just an act of defiance, really. Correct? But he wasn't coming out.
It was an act of defiance.
I mean, just tell me what you thought of that motion.
I thought it was aggressive towards me a little bit because he grabbed the door immediately and said no and pulled it back shut.
Okay.
And forced my hand back, you know, to where the door was closed again.
Okay.
And at that point it escalated.
Okay. When did you view your body cam video?
This morning with my lawyer.
With your lawyer in his presence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where was that at?
That was at his office.
Okay. You watched the whole thing from start to finish?
Yes, sir.
Was it on a disc or from a cell phone?
Flash drive.
Flash drive.
I was just curious because I guess there's an app where you can label the video and then you can watch it from the app.
Yes, I don't have that app on my phone.
Okay.
You want to take a break for a few minutes?
Yes.
Time is 14:25 hours. We're going to take a quick break.
Do you need anything right now?
Get you a drink or anything?
I'll take a water, please.
Water? Okay.
Thank you.
I'll get you a water. I'm sorry.
All right, we're going to go back on, okay?
Okay.
Current time is 2:32. You responded to the hospital once Cincinnati Fire Department got there, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
They transported you?
A city sergeant actually transported me.
Okay. Why did you go to the hospital?
My left arm felt tingly from being stuck inside the vehicle. From here down, you can still see the bruises right here. From my elbow down, it was tingling. And it felt like I pulled something and it just hurt. My left knee hurt also, and my lower back hurt. And all of these three things continued to escalate as my adrenaline wore off. My left arm just hurt more and more.
Okay. What about your wrist? I'm asking you that because in your body camera footage shows you shaking your arm. So, did your wrist bother you?
From the elbow down, just all the way into my hand, it just felt tingly. It just felt like I pulled a tendon in my arm. That's why I was shaking my hand to see if my tendon still worked and everything, because I just felt like I pulled something from my body weight, you know, being pulled by my arm.
Okay. What was the diagnosis?
Bruising on the underside of my left arm, a minor contusion to the left side of my knee, minor bruising, and then a sore lower back near my gun belt.
Okay. Did you do any follow-up with the physicians?
No, ma'am.
We're going to show you a couple pictures. If you could show me on this picture where you believe you put your arm in order to turn off the ignition.
I believe with my left hand that I reached through or near the top part of this steering wheel, the open part. I believe from my angle that's where I could see the key of the ignition from.
Okay.
And that was the most direct route to it.
I'd put an X on it and put your initials next to it. Hopefully it'll go through. It should show up.
You want me to put it above that?
Yeah, just put your initials right there. And here, make sure I can see. Yeah, I see the X. Okay. We had this picture too, and this is just where the open part is down here now. But at the time when you put your arm through, the wider opening was upright.
Okay.
Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. Was your arm twisted while you were holding on? Do you recall?
I don't recall exactly. All I know is it was just stuck inside this vehicle and I could not dislodge it and get free.
Okay. Anything else? don't think we have any other questions for you. Is there anything that we didn't ask you about that you believe is pertinent, we should know about? Any other details? Let me ask you this. Did he smell like he had been drinking, or was there an odor of alcohol and or drugs about himself or the car?
I did not detect either alcohol or drugs, no.
Okay. All right.
Is there anything else to recommend?
We'll conclude the interview. The current time is 14:35 hours. We're gonna talk to your attorney. So we'll take you outside. So Ray, is that your new name? Paul. And then he'll be back out to talk to you.
Okay.
You guys just wait for me out there?
Okay.
Myra's holding you hostage.
Okay.
Somewhere else. You can
Come back
take your
here.
stuff with you.
Right?
Yeah, thank you.
There's a few more questions. Those that you want to ask you though? Okay. Thank you.
Your uniform was processed by our journalists,
Back on
so
the
we're going
clock.
to go back on as far as your interview. The current time is 14:39 hours. We took all of your equipment, not we, but the police department. The sergeant that drove you to the hospital, he took your uniform, your gun belt, and your work boots.
Yeah, so my external desk carrier.
Okay. Are these your boots?
Yes.
So all these pictures are indicated. They're all the same.
Yes.
Okay. What size do you wear, being 6'4"?
Boots, I believe, are 14s, maybe 13s.
There's some damage on your boots. Was that damage there prior to the incident, or is this new damage from the incident?
The damage you're referring to being the ripped
Mhm.
upper part,
Yes.
that was there before the incident.
Okay, so this is not new damage, and it did not occur during the drag?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's all I have. We'll conclude again at 14:40 hours. We're going to start this interview again.
Okay.
Current time is 14:45 hours. There's an abrasion on your elbow. You see that? Is that old or new? Not elbow, inner.
Right over
inner.
here. Looks like that's old.
That was old, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, some more pictures. This seems to be a picture of your gun belt with a handcuff case and a glove pouch. Is this damage new?
This damage is all old.
This is old?
This is all previous.
Oh, right. What about the end right here of your flashlight holder? See where the leather's kind of worn to the brown area?
I believe that is old.
Now look at the button on your glove pouch.
That is new.
Okay, so right here, draw arrows to where the damage is and then put old, new, old, and then put your initials by it.
To all the damage
Yeah,
everywhere.
I see. All right, this one.
Do the same thing under that arrow. new damage or
if it's old.
old?
Just an error here for this corner damage around my lid.
Same for the flashlight holder.
Yeah, so right here on the flashlight holder, this end appears to be damaged.
Okay.
These are the same pictures, they're just up close. All right, this is the holster. And the holster has some scrapes or indentations into the molding.
Okay. That's new.
It is new. All right, just draw an arrow, right, new. Your initials.
Yeah, shows it better.
This does show it a little bit better.
You want me to work on here?
No, you don't have to. It's the same damage. There should be another error to that section. This is just a measurement of it. There's a line on your vest carrier. Here's a more up-close photo of it. Was that on there?
That is new.
No.
We've been working on this one.
Yeah. Do you see how the stitching, when it's up close, is messed up?
That's new.
It is new. Here, you can see it on this one. You can mark that. And this dirt pattern, is that just wear and tear?
This down here is just dirt.
Yeah, is that dirt? Like,
That's new.
okay. Then an arrow to that, and an arrow to that.
You want to mark this as well here?
Yeah, put an arrow to that line. It's okay. That way it's all on the same photo. These are your uniform pants. This shows it a little bit better, but you see this mark right here?
That's new.
Right. And there's also a tear in the pocket. And you can tell there appears to be a minor tear right there.
That's new. Then along with the stitching right here,
Okay.
that stitches, that's new as well.
Okay. Date on all the pictures that you made marks on, up in the corner.
For today's date or the date of the incident?
That's today's date, the date that you identified it as being new damage or old damage.
Also, I noticed on the other handcuff case, that's new damage as well.
All right. let me
That's
find
Scout
it.
Park.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Sorry, you said today's date?
Yes, today's date.
Today is the 21st.
All right, yes. You get 2 handcuff cases. Now you see how there's 2 areas?
Yeah, that's
Are
what
they
I'm
both
saying.
new?
They're both new. And then can I mark these scrapes down here as well? These are new.
Mm-hmm. How fast do you think you were traveling with momentum when you were going to the ground? Your body traveling?
I'm just guessing, but maybe 15 miles an hour.
Okay. Do me a favor and make your 4s look like, your 7s look like 7s and not 4s for me.
Okay.
Only because here you made it look like a 7.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm running 4. So okay to do that?
Yeah, that's fine. Corey, teach you guys how to write
Pretty
real
much,
stop
yeah.
sevens.
Probably better than running 0.
Don't feel bad, I was from Mount Healthy.
Okay.
Not all of us can get it over.
Was Linton Schmidt from Coring too?
I do not believe so. Can we initial this one too, or?
No, that was just a full-size channel. So I don't believe there's anything on your legs. At least I didn't do a front picture. Do you recall if the front of your pants was damaged?
I don't believe so.
Alright. While they're taking pictures of you, I'm going to just make sure that they didn't take a frontal view of those pants and see if there was any damage to the front.
No, we won't go off forever this time, we'll just leave it run.
Are you going to stay in here then?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just, while they're taking pictures, and give you a chance to go sleep. Sure. What the process is for that, that's going to be up to UC or is to release it.
UC said it was you guys.
Well,
So you may be stuck with it.
Stuck with what?
Decision on when to release the video.
Oh, yeah. This is the front of your uniform pants. Do you see anything that stands out that is new damage or any damage?
No. I'll get that one too.
You can look at that one.
No, not that I can tell.
Okay. All right. Let me get the color list in here for the photo. Do you want to end the interview?
Yeah, we can end it.
The current time is at 2:58. Shannon, hi.
Ray Tenzing, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Terry McGuffey,
Nice to meet you.
I just have a few more questions, Sergeant. Just to go over some of the photos that you would have showed Ray Tenzing that day, and then I'll stop. I'm going to ask you to look at State's Exhibit 9I, 9C, D, I believe it's E, F, G, and H. And just look at those briefly if you could. And what are those photos, Sergeant Hine?
Oh, the photos that we showed Officer Tenzing during the interview and that he made communications on.
Okay. Judge, can I have admitted display of the exhibits?
Yeah, okay, absolutely.
And Sergeant, if you wouldn't mind, if it's okay with the court, having her step off the witness stand and showing what she was talking about. Is that good? Having her step up here.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, thanks. If you would, you could just come over here. Maybe use one of the pens you have and tell the jury if you could keep your voice up the significance of 9I and what that would show.
9I is a photo of Officer Tenzing standing at the side of Mr. DeVoe's Honda Accord. And at the top, just at the dashboard above the steering wheel, you will see Officer Tenzing's initials.
And this is a still photo from the video.
That's correct.
Okay. And let me just do this real fast, Sergeant. Because you talked about some to initial something. Is that what Ray Tenzing had put his initials there during that interview?
Yes.
You had him do that with his own hand?
Yes.
That's what that RT is?
Yes.
Let me just leave that down. (9D).
9D is a photo of the outside, the exterior vest cover, in which Officer Tenzing wrote that the line down the side was new damage.
9C.
9C is a photo of Officer Tenzing's uniform pants that shows stitching. Follow this one down, shows the stitching is frayed and torn there. And this one, it goes down to the stitching around the pocket area that's also frayed or torn. And then this lastly is like a scrape or like an abrasion to the pants from like the roadway.
And again, is that in Ray Tenzing's own handwriting that you had him do that in the interview room?
Yes, sir.
(9E).
This is the handcuff case. It's just to the right side of the nylon pouch right here. This indicates damage that's new. Officer Tenzing initial pointing down to the damage at the bottom of the cover. And then also to the side of the cover is new damage. And then right around the body of the handcuff case is new damage.
Would it be fair to say, Sergeant Hine, that you really didn't know what may have been new and what may have been dull, that you were taking his word for it and what he wrote down?
True, but you can also look at it to tell if it was old or new based on if it was old, it would have maybe dirt or discoloring over it.
Okay. But again, this is what you wrote. You had not seen any of that beforehand.
Correct.
9F.
There's a photo of the bottom half of the firearm holster, and it has indentations into the plastic that indicates that it was new damage.
9G.
G is the other, or I'm sorry, a close-up version of the vest carrier from 9D, where you can see a better line right here in the middle, and then the frame and the stitching going down the vest carrier, and then a strip of dirt on the right side of the back portion of the vest carrier.
And the last photo would be 9H.
This is the other side of the duty belt where the other handcuff case is, next to the nylon holder. And this is where I would tell you that this is how you tell if the damage is old or new. You see that like coating of dirt over this old damage. And right here, you can tell fresh versus old. So here he indicates old damage, here he indicates old damage, here he indicates old damage. And on the button of the nylon case is new damage.
Okay. You could go back through this now, Sergeant. Judge, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Matthews, cross-exam.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sergeant Hine, you indicated in your earlier testimony that you were with internal investigations for about 3 years,
Yes, sir.
and you also then were at one point in a homicide unit, correct?
Very quick stint.
I'm sorry?
It's a very short-lived stint.
Okay. You indicated that when there's an officer-involved shooting, there are 3 separate sort of investigations, correct?
That's correct.
And do the criminal investigation section, of which homicide is a part, I assume?
Yes, homicide conducts a criminal portion.
Okay, and the administrative action or administrative investigation is conducted by internal affairs?
Yes, sir.
Do those occur at the same time?
Simultaneously, in parallel, but independent.
And they're done by different individuals?
Yes.
Okay, so your investigation, your portion of this investigation was the criminal aspect of it, correct?
Correct.
And was Officer McGuffey or Detective McGuffey, he was your partner on this?
Yes.
And were you both equal in it, or was one of you in charge?
I believe we were equal, but he was a more senior officer in the homicide unit, and he was teaching me.
Okay, when you complete your criminal investigation, do you make a recommendation as far as whether criminal charges are warranted?
So, in homicide, in a regular murder investigation, it's usually pretty clear cut, so we would go ahead and sign the charge ourselves. Officer-involved shooting, we confer with the prosecutor's office, and in the end, they determine the legality of the actions taken by the officer.
Okay, and do you give some input in that?
Yes, sir.
Did you do that in this case?
Not too much.
Well, what does not too much mean?
From my prior experience in internal investigations, I thought I was looking at something.
Judge, I'm going to object.
Based on my time and training with internal investigations, I thought I was looking at an officer-involved shooting where his actions may be determined to be justified based on the events surrounding the actual shooting and taking into consideration the information about the prior conduct of Mr. DeBose and Officer Tenzie.
It was Is your feeling that the officer's actions were justified?
Objection. Judge, I don't think anybody could ever express their opinion as to the ultimate issue in this case.
I don't, let's go on over here on the record.
Sergeant Hine, you
I don't
testify.
think the court report's ready, Judge.
Oh, no, I'm fine, thank you, sir. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chief. Go ahead.
Sergeant Hine, you indicated that you are currently assigned to a unit that goes by the initials Pivot, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you said that that is a unit that monitors crimes around the city and determines which areas are good or bad, or where crime is prevalent?
Yes, sir.
How does Mount Auburn fit into that?
The current most violent location in the city right now is Avondale. Of the 23, Mount Auburn is probably in the top 20%.
Okay, and this situation occurred in what is known as Mount Auburn, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. When was your first contact with Ray Tenzing? Was it on July 21st at the Criminal Investigation Unit interview room?
Yes, sir.
And Ray, at that point, came in and you asked him if he would make a statement, correct?
I did.
And he made a statement to you?
Yes.
Did you ever find anything in his statement to you that was inconsistent with anything that you knew about this case?
Objection.
No, I did not.
Did he answer all of your questions that you put to him?
He did.
Okay, and when you asked him, you showed him the pictures of damage to his uniform. He didn't just say blanket, everything that's damaged on there was caused by this incident, correct?
He did not say everything was new.
Okay, he pointed out new areas of damage and old areas of damage.
He did.
Thank you.
Is there? I hear a fan in the background and I can barely.
It is, I apologize, it's the air conditioner blowing out there.
You can't hear me?
I just have to pay attention. Sorry.
Just talk a little bit louder.
Okay.
Mr. Matthews, please.
You indicated in your testimony that there was an African American shown on the video walking up the sidewalk while Officer Tenzing was engaged with Mr. DuBose. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
And beyond, when was the canvass done where it was, an attempt was made to locate witnesses to this event?
Yeah, several hours after the incident occurred.
Did anybody ever go back and do any follow-up canvassing?
Not that I'm aware of, not that I did.
And the African-American male walking up the sidewalk was never identified, correct?
That's correct.
And the car that was driving northbound on Rice Street as Ray Tenzing was picking himself up out of the roadway was never identified, correct?
That's correct.
Did anybody ever go back in that neighborhood after July 19th to see if the car could be located anywhere in that area?
I've been back to that area since, and I've never located the vehicle.
Did you do that relatively soon after July 19th?
No, sir.
Your canvass did lead you to the discovery of Alicia Napier, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Alicia didn't come in voluntarily to talk to the police department, correct?
No.
You
I mean, she did voluntarily come in, but we sought her out.
You tracked her down, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did you conduct the interview with Alicia Napier?
Yes, myself and Detective McGuffey.
And was her version of what she witnessed out there consistent with what you had seen on the video, body-worn camera video of Ray Tenzing?
There were some inconsistencies, but none that were heavily of note to discount her entire statement.
You didn't discount her entire statement, but it wasn't entirely accurate, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. During your 18 years with the Cincinnati Police Division, have you ever reached into a car?
Yes, sir.
That was a yes? And what were the circumstances when you did?
One time I went to open the door, and it was a felony wanted subject, and he pulled the door closed, but right as my hand was at the pillar of the car, so I slammed on my index finger. That wasn't necessarily reaching into the car, but going towards the passenger side of the car. One time was a DUI. Another time was a passed out subject.
Okay, and is that something that you're not necessarily trained to do, correct?
Yeah, we're not told do not ever go inside the passenger compartment of a car.
Does that happen instinctively at times?
Yes.
Sergeant Hine, if a driver took off while you were stuck in the car, would that make you feel like you were in jeopardy of serious physical harm or death?
Objection.
Yes, I would.
Would you feel justified in doing whatever you could do to save yourself?
Objection.
As part of your investigation, you applied for a search warrant of Sam DeBose's car, correct?
That's correct.
And can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what was found in that car?
There were several containers and bags of marijuana. There was a jar of marijuana. There was a bag of marijuana in the console part of the car. There were several like homemade remedy type medicines. I don't know if I should say like homeopathic remedies. There were several cell phones. The casing from the round that was discharged. The round from the bullet itself from the round that was discharged. Mr. DeBose's hat. There were several things.
Was there a lot of medication found in the car?
Yes, sir.
Was it over-the-counter medication?
Some was over the counter and some was prescribed prescription medication.
Did you do any kind of forensic investigation with reference to the 4 cell phones that were found?
There was no need to look into the further activities of Mr. DeBose at that point, so I did not do any forensic search or incur the cost of it.
Okay. I assume as a trained, certified police officer, you go to the range occasionally, is that correct?
I do.
You have to get requalified, what, every year or twice a year?
We qualify annually, and then we do familiarization training annually also.
Okay, when you're at the range, are you ever taught to shoot to kill?
No, sir.
Are you ever taught to shoot to wound?
No, sir.
What are you taught?
Taught to shoot to stop a threat.
Thank you, Sergeant. With reference to Mr. Teeger's questions about Ray Tenzing's giving you a statement 48 hours later, I believe you testified that that's the policy and procedure of the University of Cincinnati Police Department, correct?
Yes, within 48 hours.
Within 48 hours? And that is different from the policy of the Cincinnati Police Division, correct?
It is.
And the Cincinnati Police Division requires the officers to come in and do it right away, correct?
We do.
And do you understand that there is a reason for not having officers come in and give statements immediately?
I do. In fact, it's a national trend that most agencies give their officers a time break before they give their statement.
And why is that, if you know?
The objective would be to get the officer to calm down and the ability to recollect more around the event itself and what led up to it and how he reacted.
And do you understand that police agencies have all different kinds of policies with reference to when officers give statements?
I do.
And how about the issue of viewing body camera videos prior to giving a statement? You indicated that Cincinnati doesn't allow that,
Correct.
but UC does, correct? And do you understand that their body-worn cameras are something relatively new in policing?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that the policy as far as whether to allow officers to view the video before they give an interview or afterwards is something that is in dispute among the experts, whether they should be allowed to or not?
I do.
Okay. May I have a moment, Judge?
Okay.
Sergeant, do you recall that Ray Tenzing was transported to University Hospital from the scene on Rice Street on July 19th?
Yes, sir.
And are you aware that he was prescribed pain medication as a result of what happened to him?
I believe I became aware of that later, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Okay, Mr. Teeger, anything on redirect?
Yes, Judge.
Okay, go ahead.
You mentioned, Sergeant, a couple instances where you reached into cars.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever pulled your gun and shot anybody in the head?
Unfortunately, I have not had to use my gun at all.
Okay. And you talked about with Mr. Matthews that I think you had said he asked you whether between what the defendant told you in his statement, you found no inconsistencies with the facts and circumstances of the case.
There were no real inconsistencies.
Are you aware that Grant Fredericks, the forensic video analyst, found a lot of inconsistencies between the defendant's statement and the facts as they existed from the video?
To which I object.
Judge, and he's the one that brought it up.
I know, but that's assuming she's seen the other cut. I mean, that's something you can bring out with a witness that's sustained.
Well, Judge, she saw Mr. Fredericks testify at the last trial.
No, it's a rule, I mean, it's distinct. You've got to, you can't say it.
Were you present at the first trial?
Yes, sir.
And did you see Grant Fredericks testify?
Yes, sir.
And having seen that, are you still telling this jury that you saw no inconsistencies between what the defendant said and the other evidence in the case?
I don't recall any at this time, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Matthews, anything?
No, Judge.
Okay. Detective, you may step down. Thank you very much. Is she excused at this time?
That'll be fine, Judge.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Mr. Teeger? Anybody
Judge,
else?
I think that it's
We're just
right around
perfect.
our
You guys
stopping
are, you are doing a great job with
I'd
remaining
like
on
to take
time.
credit for that, Judge.
Okay, it's all Mr. Teeger and Mr. Graffery. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to let you break for the weekend. I'm sort of losing track of the days here, and I forget that it's actually Friday. Again, I'm going to ask you no discussions about this. Do not discuss this with family members, friends, spouses, significant others. Please stay off social media altogether. Please stay away from the local news and do your best to stay away from national news to the degree it may pertain to this. I ask that you be here on Monday at 9 a.m. again. Feel free to bring whatever you'd like. Again, you're perfectly welcome to, as long as a drink is covered, you're more than welcome to have that out here. And I believe that's it. We will see you, bring a sweater again, just in case, but I think it's going to get really warm, so I think we're going to be all right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're excused for the weekend.